The Chitrik Academy is dedicated in loving memory of Rabbi Chitrik.
Welcome to part 1 of this series titled The Evolution of the Torah. When discussing the evolution of the Torah, there are 3 different stages. Number 1 is there is the pre-Matan Torah stage, before the Matan Torah, before the Torah was given. The second is at Matan Torah, what occurred at Matan Torah. And the third one is the post-Matan Torah era, what occurred, the evolution of Torah from after the Torah was given until the present. In this class, we will deal with the first stage, the pre-Matan Torah stage. However, before we get into that, we will be discussing in this class many different dates, Jewish dates and secular dates. So I'm going to give you a magic number in order to help convert from Jewish dates to secular dates. And that magic number is 3760. According to the Jewish calendar, 3,760 years is when the world was created before the secular date. So 3760 of the Jewish calendar is year 0 of the secular calendar. For example, the Jews were expelled from Spain in the year 1492. So if I want to know when was that in the Jewish year, I would have 1492 plus 3760, because that's the difference between the Jewish calendar and the secular calendar. So I know that the expulsion from Spain was in the year 5252 of the Jewish calendar. And this works the other way around as well. For example, if I want to know the Baal Shem Tov was born in the year 5505 of the Jewish calendar. So if I want to know when that was in the secular calendar, I would subtract 3760, and I would know that the Baal Shem Tov was born in the year 1745 of the secular calendar. Okay, let us begin. Most people, when they begin teaching about the Torah, they begin at Matan Torah, because Matan Torah means the giving of the Torah. So it makes sense that that's where we should start off discussing the evolution of the Torah. Matan Torah was in the year 2448, as we can see, which is the year 1312 BCE, before the Common Era. The question is, was Matan Torah the first time that we were introduced to the Torah? Does the evolution of the Torah begin from Matan Torah? Let us see. Let us go all the way back to the beginning, to Adam. We know that Adam Arishain, the first man who was created in the year 0, he's created right in the beginning when the world is created, he studied Torah. As we know that there's a sefer called Sefer Yetzirah, which some attribute to Adam Rishon. So Adam already knew Torah. He already knew how to call all the animals, and he had studied Torah. Moving along, the Medrash also tells us that Noah also had a Torah. Noah, who built the ark, also studied Torah, and after he returns after the flood, he created a yeshiva, which Avram Avinu learned that. And we know that Noah's son, Shem, also had a yeshiva. It's known that there was a yeshiva of Shem and Aver, which is mentioned many times in the Medrash. So what Torah were they studying until then? We also know, later on, when Jacob was going down to Egypt with his family, this is not the exact map of him going down to Egypt, this is actually the Jews coming back from Egypt to Israel. But when Jacob was coming back, when Yaakov was going down to Egypt, it says that he sent before him Shalach Yehuda lefanav Goshna. He sent Yehuda, his son Yehuda, before him to Goshen, to Egypt. And we are told that he went to set up a yeshiva in order to learn Torah. So if they had Torah all this time, why do we say the Matan Torah is the beginning when the Torah was received? Also, if they had Torah, they should have known the future. They should have seen that it says the Jews will complain here, they will sin over here. So if they could know the future, they should have prevented all the tragedies that happened in the future. So what does it mean that they had the Torah? So to explain this, we know that everything has a body and a soul. A person has a body and a soul. has a physical body and a spiritual soul. And even plants, every single thing in this world has a body and a soul. The Medrash tells us that every single grass has a mazel, has a angel, has a soul telling it to grow. Every single thing in this world has its physical body, and there's a spiritual soul that is creating it every moment. Now the Torah also has a body and a soul, also is divided into these two parts. There is the Torah, the body of the Torah, the way we have the Torah now, which speaks about the physical, which speaks about people who cheat, people who steal, people who go against the will of God, against the will of Hashem. This is the body of the soul, of the Torah. It's more of a physical, dealing with the physical, mundane world. But then there is the soul of the Torah. The soul of the Torah is more the esoteric part, the spiritual part behind the Torah. More of a Kabbalistic part of the Torah. That is the soul of the Torah. Let's explain this through an example. This is a sheep which is called Jacob's sheep. These sheep can have between either 2 horns, 4 horns, and I've seen some even with 6 horns. These horns are attributed to Jacob, to our forefather Jacob, to Yaakov. Why are they attributed to him? Because we know that when Jacob was working for his father-in-law Lavan, so his father-in-law he was a shepherd, his father-in-law kept changing his wages, changing the style of what would be his wages. At one point he said it would be if the sheep have spots on them, then he changed it to patches, then he changed it to stripes, and whatever the condition was, that if the sheep were this way, then Jacob would get to keep them, Yaakov would get to keep them. It always happened that the sheep started having children in that way. So Jacob became a very wealthy man. And one of the things they say is that this sheep is from a breed that was unique to Yaakov. That, for example, Lavan may have said, if a sheep has 4 horns or more, you can keep them, and all of a sudden the sheep started growing 4 horns. Why are we mentioning this? Because the Medrash tells us that Yaakov, that Jacob, the way he produced these sheep to have these unique patterns on them was through taking sticks and shearing the sticks and cutting the sticks, making different marks on the sticks and putting in the water before the sheep, when they would go, the sheep and the cattle, when they would go to drink, they would see these sticks. We are also told that Jacob was able to do the mitzvah of tefillin, of phylacteries, through these sticks, through putting on these sticks, through placing these sticks in the water before the sheep. Now, how is that possible? No one puts on tefillin that way, by taking sticks and cutting sticks and making marks on sticks. How was he able to was he able to be considered to put on tefillin, put on phylacteries through these sticks? So the answer is that at that point, the physical, before the Torah was given, the spiritual part of the Torah was not connected with the physical acts that the Torah demanded. It was all in a spiritual way. For example, tefillin is to make that we put it to symbolize that we are designating our mind and our hearts. We're giving it over to Hashem. Shibud halev v'moach, to give over, to serve Hashem, to serve God. However, it did not need to be in a way of putting on phylacteries. It was able to be in a way, he was able to bring down this idea, to draw this idea, which is more of a level called mimale. He was able to bring this down through the sticks. So to summarize, there's a body and a soul of the Torah. Before Matan Torah, before the Torah was given, we had just the soul of the Torah. It's more of a spiritual way of having the Torah, just the soul, the ideas of it. So they did not know the future. They did not know the actual events that would take place later on. All they knew was there's going to be an exile. There's going to be a darkness. They didn't realize that this meant going into Egypt, that there was going to be a galut, there was going to be an exile. They didn't understand, they didn't know the physical things that were going to happen. They only knew everything in more of a spiritual, Kabbalistic manner. Only later on, after the Torah was given, did everything become more of a physical idea. So this is how everything was before the Torah was given. Now in our next lesson we will discuss what happened at Matan Torah, when the Torah was given.